One thing I'm sure a lot of people will, have a question about, especially once they see OG Tiny, is in that OG series, we've got two baits now. We've got Slim, the first one that came out, and we've got Tiny. And if you look at the overall shape of the bait, they are a very similar body shape, very similar bill angle. Everything is just condensed down from Slim down to Tiny. The thickness of the bait, the height of the bait, the length of the bait, the length of the bill, everything about it is just a little bit smaller package. And then that also translates into the fact that it is a little bit shallower running bait. Slim, we call that a 6-foot diving bait. Tiny is about a 4-foot diving bait. And so just that in and of itself, that's 2 feet less that bait's gonna run. But I wanna help you understand why you're gonna pick one over the other versus just that simple factor of 2 feet of depth that you're gonna get more with Slim. A big thing on Slim, I mean, it is a decent size profile bait. For a lot of flat-sided baits that are out there, Slim is a pretty good size profile. I would even call it larger than an average size flat-sided crankbait. And number one factor with that, it's gonna lend itself to catching bigger fish on average. I mean, just the average bite you're gonna get on Slim, generally speaking, is gonna be a pretty good fish. Now you step that over to Tiny, obviously a much smaller bait, but don't think for a second that it won't catch an absolute giant. I have caught some giant fish on that little bitty bait. It's just insane. So number one, don't think that when you step down to a finesse crankbait that you're fishing only for little fish, because that simply is not the case. Dropping down in the size of that bait can not only help you get more bites, but it can also help you land more of those bites, because something like that little Tiny compared to a Slim, maybe they're able to suck that Tiny in a little bit more and get those hooks wedged in their mouth in a better way than they will sometimes especially on a smallmouth. I really have seen that over the years. Just keep that in mind. It's a lot bigger deal than what I think a lot of people understand or really talk about a lot. It's just a different profile in the same running depth crankbait. Another thing you can do really well when you've got baits that are similar running depth is really dialing in the size of the forage. If all the bait you're seeing is really small, and I think of that like early in the fall, September, October, a lot of our shad-based fisheries, those shad that were hatched out, in May or June, they're not very big. They're 1.5 inch, 2 inch long. And that downsizing your bait to really match the size of that forage that you're seeing can go from generating hardly any bites to fish just absolutely clobbering it. So matching the forage is definitely a really important thing that you're able to do just by downsizing your bait. Something else to consider definitely is just the general water temperature and kind of how that affects the mood of the fish, and honestly the size of the meal they want to have. When that water's cold, those fish aren't looking to go out and eat a big 6 or 8 inch long shad. They're wanting something small, something that's going to be easy for them to digest. So that really cold water temperatures, when that stuff is down in the 40s up to 50, day in and day out, I'm probably going to go to Tiny. Now, if it's a really beautiful day, we've got a nice southwest breeze blowing, got a good ripple on the water, and those fish are really chewing, and I'm looking to upgrade my catch some, I'm probably going to go ahead and pick up Slim, because on those days when those fish are feeding really heavy in that cooler water, that's a great time of the year to pick up that little bit bigger bait and target those bigger ones. Now, when you get up into that water temperature that's 52, 53, I'm going to use them both kind of side by side. You can fish down one bank and catch fish on Slim, turn right back around and go back down the same bank with Tiny and catch totally different fish. You step that water temperature on up there a little bit more, 55, 56, I'm going to go straight to Slim. That's going to be the bait that I pick up on that day. I will keep Tiny in the rotation for those really, really tough bites in that situation though. If we get a cold front, we get bright bluebird skies, no wind whatsoever, I'm going to go ahead and go to Tiny, because I know I can still generate bites with it when maybe they're short striking Slim. That is another great tip. If you're fishing with Slim and you're getting a lot of fish that just want to bump the bait, just want to mouth at it, they're not really fully committing to it, or maybe you're barely getting them with one hook, go ahead and try Tiny in that same situation. If those fish are shallow enough, you can reach them. That bait's a little bit smaller, a little bit easier on a fish to suck in when he's not really trying to feed on it that well anyway. And then finally, I mean, our waters are fished as heavily as they've ever been, certainly in my lifetime. And fishing pressure is just such a big deal, man. A lot of people go out there throwing big stuff, larger than average baits, and you can go behind those people that are having, might be having a tough day, or maybe they're getting a few big bites here and there, you can go behind them and a lot of times clean up, get a lot of bites. And anytime you're in a place generating a lot of bites, you're getting a lot of activity, those big fish that are in that area are gonna feed too. So those are a few of the situations. Running depth, obviously that's an obvious one, but condition wise, that is probably the second biggest one. Starting with water temperature, working into your outside conditions, and just following the mood of the fish. You know, if those fish are really lethargic, they don't want to strike at the bait, they're not eating it well, downsizing your presentation. It's not just with crankbaits, that's with anything. But looking at these two baits side by side, those are the times I'm going to pick one up over the other.